Drive to Survive Season 3 is dropping on March 19th, 2021. It's the Netflix series that we all look forward to as it gives us a good recap from last season, gets us that insider perspective on teams, and builds up our anticipation for the next year to start. Every season has 10 episodes, and in this video, we're going to be thinking back to the 2020 season and coming out with a list of 10 different storylines that we think are going to be covered in this season. So a bit of a prediction style video here to see how accurate we are. Maybe we'll make the same choices as the Netflix directors.
If you like this style of video, make sure to leave it a like. Don't forget to subscribe, and also make sure that you hit that bell so you can be notified every time we post a new video.
We're gonna get started right away and cover the obvious storylines first to get those out of the way.
Although Mercedes weren't really involved in being followed throughout Drive to Survive in the first couple of seasons, we have received confirmation that they will be following the team's developments a little bit more closely in Season 3. I think the storyline that's going to build from this is going to be a combination between following Hamilton's success as he approaches reaching Michael Schumacher's records and overtaking them, and then delving into Bottas being number 2 driver. Is he going to be able to overcome this hurdle? But I think a storyline that is going to be really emerging in Season 3 leading into Season 4 is George Russell and how he plays into the Mercedes mix.
We know they were following George when he was filling in for Lewis Hamilton at the Secure Grand Prix. It'll be really interesting to see how much insider perspective we get from both drivers. One on the side of Bottas and seeing if the struggle and emotions of the media hounding him saying, hey, George might steal your seat, is it getting to him or not? And also, of course, on the flip side, for George's emotions based on the result of the race.
One thing's for certain though, I do think that Netflix will absolutely be focusing on Hamilton's success, especially because he hasn't been a focal point of the series in previous seasons, largely because of the whole issue between Mercedes and Ferrari not wanting to initially participate.
We definitely see a Mercedes-centric episode being more towards the later end of the series. When we look at the first episode of the season, it's going to be without a doubt looking at the Australian Grand Prix being cancelled. Of course, then we have that long-winded break in between. When is it going to start? When's it not? Factories being closed, probably. And of course, then the season opener being in Austria.
We already did get somewhat of a confirmation from Lando, essentially saying that they were following him at this race, so we can highly expect that his first podium result will be a major talking point. I just wonder if they're going to kind of continue to follow the McLaren team and Lando's progress at the team, or if it's just kind of going to be a one-off moment. Of course, speaking of McLaren, we all know that Daniel Ricciardo has been kind of one of the major stars of Drive to Survive, so of course they're going to keep following him throughout the season, but I think his main focal point will be the storyline of his departure from Renault. I'll also be curious to see if they continue to play into the whole, is it a mistake? Should he have left? Considering that is essentially what they played off when he initially left Red Bull. But I'm also curious to see how much they touch on Esteban's return and Cyril losing his job and just all of the different shakeups that are happening between Renault moving to Alpine.
And also, who could forget Alonso's return back to the team? I'm sure there's going to be some talk about that. So we could see an episode focused on the Renault team and their changes and the shakeups leading ahead to the next season as they rebrand to Alpine F1 team. There'll for sure be an episode on Ferrari's struggles. They went from a top contending team to struggling in the midfield. We'll get some interviews from Charles and Mattia just in terms of how they were struggling to get performance out of this car, yet they were still able to get some podiums.
I also think it goes without saying, they have to bring up the whole drama with Vettel. I really hope that we get a little bit more from Vettel because he is such a private person that at times it can be a little bit difficult for him to say what's really going on behind the scenes. So how are they going to approach this? Are they going to be able to pull that info out of him? I personally think they will likely follow it, but it may not be as in-depth as the fans are hoping to see.
A race we might see from them is Turkey, as they had a good performance there. Also, Mattia wasn't there, so maybe that could play into a factor.
Not to mention that this was such a pinnacle moment for Hamilton in not only the season, but his entire career. So 100% Netflix was following that very closely. So I wonder if there will be a little bit of a crossroads between Hamilton being at the peak of his success versus Vettel kind of struggling to find his way this season.
I'm also curious to see if Sainz's decision to go to Ferrari will play a factor in this episode. So that's going to be a whole episode focused on Ferrari's struggles, and of course, Vettel becoming a free agent. As a result of this, it brings us to our next focal point of the season, at Racing Point. Definitely one of the most craziest, silly seasons we've seen in recent years, but this will definitely be a moment where we see some emotion from these drivers that we probably didn't see while it was actually taking place. Not to mention also for Perez's perspective, once he got dropped by Racing Point, he had to then be the next driver trying to find a seat for 2021.
When looking at Racing Point, both drivers went through such extreme highs and lows throughout the season, with both of them getting podiums and even a pole position, but then also having to deal with crashes, mechanical failures, and of course, probably the biggest shock to us all, both drivers getting COVID. As a result, I think that we're going to see some Hulken back. And I think this could be potentially exciting given all of the rumors swirling at the moment that he could be Aston Martin's new reserve and test driver for 2021. I'm also predicting that we are going to see an episode on the Williams family leaving the sport.
We also had Nicholas Latifi joining the team, so we might see an introduction to him being the newest rookie on the grid. It also goes without saying that we expect to see their improvements throughout the season, especially on their qualifying sessions, getting into Q2 multiple times.
So I think overall their coverage is going to be very turbulent. They had some signs of progress and then some signs as if it was quite disorganized, and we're not really too sure which component Netflix is going to want to highlight.
So that's for Williams. Another team that seemed to struggle a lot last season was the Haas F1 team. Now, of course, this is a team that we followed throughout the first and second season with Grosjean, Magnussen, and Gunther Steiner. Of course, at the end of this season, both drivers were let go, so I definitely see them giving us some sort of closure to this relationship that we've seen grow throughout these seasons. We're definitely going to see also the crash that Grosjean went through at the Bahrain Grand Prix. We already got a glimpse of how F1 was following up with Grosjean's recovery, so I have a feeling it's going to follow a similar taste.
I definitely think that Netflix would have been following the criticism that Sky Sports and F1 received with the fact that they played the crash in such detail over and over again. I'm really hoping that Netflix will play a little bit more of a tasteful twist on this. I also think that they will definitely be pulling in drivers for interviews following the crash, seeing how the grid responded to it in general.
We can definitely see this episode finishing off with Grosjean returning back to the track, thanking all the marshals and safety car crew. This will most likely be a full circle moment for Grosjean, having to accept the fact that this was his last race in Formula 1 and not ending on the terms that he would have liked to have finished with.
If we are looking at specific races, I think a highlight of 2020 was definitely at Monza with such an unpredictable podium, and of course from last season we were following the exchange between Gasly getting dropped from Red Bull. This is his full redemption arc.
Monza will be a highlight because it was such a critical race for the midfield teams. You have Gasly getting his first win, Sainz giving it his all, and Lance proving that he shouldn't be underestimated. With that race aside, we now flip it over to the other Red Bull team of Red Bull Racing. Netflix loves to follow around Christian Horner and his team and how they're performing, so we definitely know we're going to be following them, at least in one, maybe even 2 episodes.
The drama between Cyril and Horner was so amplified last season, which is only going to bring up the engine debate once again, with Red Bull thinking they found the solution with Honda, but turns out this is going to be more complicated than they initially thought, with Honda saying they want to pull out of F1.
And of course, we could probably see them focusing on Max just not having enough pace to keep up with the Mercedes this season.
Season after season, Red Bull keeps saying they're going to get closer to Mercedes. It doesn't happen. Are we going to start seeing some frustration from Max with reliability issues, him crashing out, the car seemingly just not really giving him all the performance that he needs in order to put up a true fight? So if they start playing on Max potentially having a little bit of unrest and not being totally satisfied within the Red Bull team, could we see some drama between Horner and Verstappen that has been unshown until now?
And we can't forget about the second driver at Red Bull, which is probably going to be most likely the last episode as everything unfolded towards the end of the season. We of course saw in last season a focus on Alexander Albon being a new rookie and being brought on into the Red Bull team in the mid-2019 season, and now we finally get to see how his progression got with a full-fledged season at Red Bull.
In season 2 of Drive to Survive, Albon was hailed as this young promise rookie that was going to come back and save the team as Pierre was forced to exit. So how are they going to twist it again? Is the blame entirely going to be put on Albon, or are we finally going to face the facts that Red Bull have an issue with that second seat on their team?
And it begs the question on whether the decision to keep or get rid of Albon really as difficult as they wanted it to appear. I can see us getting a variety of different clips of moments where Alex is doing great, and then of course the other moments when he did poorly. But I can definitely see them then contrasting it with other drivers on the market and how they were performing very well and making this decision even harder for them.
Of course, we're making reference to Perez. I wouldn't be surprised if they match Albon's low points in the season with moments of brilliance from Perez. It's going to be a tough moment to reflect on for sure, because we all know it's coming, and especially if you're an Alex fan, this is probably going to be a very rough season to Drive to Survive for you. It's definitely going to be a crucial moment because it came down to the very end of the season to finally announce what would be happening to the team.
Of course, the Drive to Survive season's gonna finish off on a high, building up that anticipation for next year, with teams having new drivers and rebranding, with all the marbles on the table for who's gonna take the championship next year.
Mercedes. It's gonna be Mercedes.
Here are all the episodes that we think are gonna be in Drive to Survive Season 3.
Do you think there's anything that we missed? A key moment that we overlooked? Is there something that we did mention that you think is really not going to be that important in the grand scheme of things? You're going to have to let us know. I want to hear from you.
How many of these predictions will become true?
You're just going to have to follow us on social media to see our reactions to Drive to Survive Season 3.
Coming out on March 19th. If you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave it a like, hit that subscribe button and that bell right next to it, and we will catch you in the next one.
Bye!